There he goes. Bang.
And this is Patrick Richardson, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
I wanted to bring you back on because I like to talk the news with you, and I guess real quick, do like a 30-second bona fides on why you can talk about the news, and then we'll go from there.
Well, in 1992, I decided to go to college, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, and radio looked like fun, and journalism looked like fun, so I decided to take a couple courses in both. Discovered that being a DJ is boring as hell. But I caught the news bug, and I've been in the news business with a couple of hiatuses ever since. It's what I do for a living. It's what I've always done for a living. I've been at it for largely in the community news field, although I've done some stuff like for PJ Media and the Daily Caller as well, quite a few years ago. But largely in the community news arena for the last 30 years. And my last newspaper gig was as a regional editor for what is now Gannett, running 8 newsrooms.
Right. Yeah. So you've done the on the ground beat reporting. You've done like the city hall beat and all these things where you've got to go out and hustle your own stories up. Hard news, as good as you can define it. I mean, that's what that is. There's no room for opinion in these kind of stories because you're trying to tell everybody what happened at City Hall.
Yeah.
And then you did editing. That means you've coached journalists on how to be better. You've still got a network of these people. It's pretty good, man.
I wish it paid better, but yeah, I mean, I've done every job in the newsroom at one point or another, from beat reporting to sports to features to being the editor. So
right, yeah. And I'll say I have a degree in mass comm. At the time, mass communication was the primary communications degree in the early 90s when we were talking about here. And my field of study was TV radio. That's what I did. Along the way, you take journalism classes, you take media classes, you take marketing classes, PR classes, all these different things so you can learn how to communicate on the mass level. And I have done my share of going out and getting stories because I wanted to be a TV reporter or a news broadcaster. And so, again, I understand that. And every time I open my mouth in a story, because that's what I wrote a story, not my story, they're like, shut up. You don't get to tell us what you think. And so my job was to not opine, but to report. And so I learned that way. And by the way, this was not in any way uncommon until sort of recently. There's definitely different people, different commentators, different pundits, everything. But if you're talking about news, hard news, there's a place for opinion, but it's not in those articles. Fair?
Right.
Is that fair, Pat?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. And honestly, the vast majority, look, everybody loves to hate on the media. Right. And you always see these memes. You may hate the media, but you don't hate them enough. And there's some truth to that. But every one of them is talking about the national media. They're talking about the New York Times. They're talking about the WAPO. They're talking about the LA Times, which is actually better than a lot. And the WAPO, when Marty Barron was there, was a hell of a paper. But the average Joe, the crusty old fart, like me, it's your local newspaper, is still doing the job. They're still doing the job, for the most part, doing the job the right way.
Yeah.
We're a dying breed, but it's the small papers remember how to do it.
Yeah. Is the Christian Science Monitor still a leading publication for just straight up and down news?
I really don't know because I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to them in a long time. I know that they trended pretty left for a while. But so I haven't paid close attention to a lot of the mainstream large news outlets in a long time because you just simply can't trust most of them anymore.
Right. Right.
They just.
Well, let's get into the story that you wanted to cover. Which one do you want me to post up on here so folks can kind of read along and see what we're doing?
Well, that one I sent you from the WAPO, I did the Internet Archive version because I don't have access to the WAPO.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But the one about the Gaza aid and Israel shootings that just starts off from the jump with Israel bad.
Right. Okay, I'm going to find it here when I find it. Let's go here. Let's go here. Can you all see that? Hopefully you guys can see that. Washington Post, Jerusalem, The repeated fatal shooting of Palestinians seeking food at distribution centers in Gaza since last May are an outcome of the aid project's flawed designs, which drew enormous crowds and brought them proximity of Israeli troops who opened fire on multiple occasions, according to experts in humanitarian aid programs, witnesses' testimony, and visual evidence. That's the basic premise of the story. We have heard this story several times in several ways. And did that work? Did you guys see the article? Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Did you guys see that on the screen? Did you? Okay.
I don't see that.
Patrick, you didn't see anything. Okay. Let me try again. I'll try to see if I can do this.
For some reason, the WAPO version I'm looking at right now isn't letting me see the whole story, which is really irritating.
Yeah, that's what I sort of have too here. Let me just try this.
I don't have permission.
Yeah, that's the story. Everybody should be able to see that story now here. Yeah, it's on the screen.
Right.
So anyhow, shortly before the centers opened, United Nations warned in a briefing paper that the model developed by the group of former U.S. intelligence and defense officials and business executives working in close consultation with Israelis could lead to violence sparked by overcrowding. So this is a thing that happened sort of recently, and there's more here if you guys want to read it. What stands out to you when you look at this piece of news? And I'm assuming I have the right article. Is that right?
That's the right one. Well, I mean, the first thing is that the lead absolutely draws a conclusion that this is all the fault of Israel because and the U.S. because they did it wrong. They gave the food away wrong. And it's absolutely drawing a conclusion just without even getting into the meat of the story, what's really going on, the background and the context. It just, I mean, a lead is supposed to grab attention. I get that. But this isn't grabbing attention. This is drawing a conclusion. And that is not the job of a hard news story. Hard news stories don't draw conclusions. They lay out the facts and allow the reader to draw conclusions.
Right. One of the people quoted is a representative from the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. So what do we think about that quote? I mean, getting a good quote in there, U.S. forces or private military security companies may use force to control crowds. I mean, that sounds like a very legitimate statement to say. They may use force to control a crowd.
Sure, absolutely. But they're couching it in such a way that it sounds like it's illegitimate for them to use force to control crowds. It simply isn't. You know, you and I both know that if we have the way they're doing it apparently is, they got food lines, come get food, we'll hand you the food, you take the food back where you came from.
Yeah.
Hamas has a history of hiding among civilians. Hamas has a history of diverting aid. Hamas cannot be trusted. So yes, if number one, they've got to be cognizant of the fact that everybody they're handing food to is quite possibly a suicide bomber. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. That's the tactical picture on the ground.
There's a history there, yeah.
Yeah, that we know that we cannot trust that the people coming up to get food aid are really people coming up to get food aid. So that informs the rules of engagement from the get-go, right? And then you add in, when you have people who are desperate and hungry, fights break out. They just do.
Yep.
And that's just absolutely part of what, everybody who's ever dealt with crowd control knows that a mob is a dangerous animal with no brain.
Right.
And so the potential there is that, yes, they may, we haven't done it in the U.S. entirely too long, but how do you stop a riot? Well, you wade in and break heads until everybody stops rioting. That's how you stop a riot. You don't sit around and wait for it to peter out. You send in guys with batons and shields and you break heads until everybody decides to run. That's how you stop a riot. It's the only way they ever stop. It's the only way you can shut it down.
Right. Right.
They're going to have armed troops there for the protection of the people who are providing food and for the protection of the people coming to get food. Because, as one of the other stories I showed you, Hamas has ordered Gazans not to go there to get food, and they have threatened to shoot people and their families who do.
Here we go. I got that story for you right here. Hamas orders starving Gazans to shun U.S.-linked aid deliveries. And you have the GHF on a box right there, if you want to believe the sticker on the box. Hamas has ordered Palestinians to stay away from vital aid delivered by U.S.-backed organizations, claiming it is part of an Israeli plot to gather intelligence. The controversial GHF, which has ties to both Israel and U.S. governments, has been approved by Israel to take over aid deliveries inside the Strip, despite strong opposition from the UN and most aid groups. Witnesses reported that very few Palestinians were turning up at distribution centers, despite Gaza's population being pushed towards famine following Israel's 3-month aid blockage.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, okay. Number one, the Telegraph is usually pretty good.
Okay.
As a rule, but and I don't know if I can't scroll it, but if you scroll down here, it said second paragraph, I think it was.
Controversial.
Controversial. Why is it controversial? Mm-hmm. Because the media told us it's controversial.
Right.
Who says it's controversial?
Right. Can you say that if you just remove the controversy, if you just said Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which has ties to both Israel and U.S. governments, can you say that?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. But you come to me and say it's controversial. Well, who says so?
Right. It's those adjectives, right? Those adjectives that they slide in there.
Yeah, they're what I call a bias trigger, right? These little words, these turns of phrase, bias triggers are very subtle. You got to be looking for them. And they're words and turns of phrase and positioning of things within a story to draw the reader to the conclusion that the writer wants, while ostensibly remaining objective.
Right.
But for the most part, they're pretty good. Now, you're the spy. Is Israel using those to gather intelligence? Probably.
Yeah, I mean, look, any of these operations, that's common, whether you're doing civil affairs, psychological operations, other spy things. When you bring soccer balls to kids, I'm in the crowd. Guess what? I'm in the crowd 100%, and I'm trying to find out what's going on. So yeah, book giveaways for sure. There's people there trying to collect information. Some of them are pros like me. Some of them are just people who are asking questions in general, because that's our job, is to know what's going on. 100% for sure that happens. Does that mean the GHF was an intel op? I don't know. And I'll just say this again: you're the editor, so if I see the sentence above that second paragraph, Hamas has ordered Palestinians to stay away from vital aid delivery by U.S.-backed organizations, claiming it as part of an Israeli plot to gather intelligence. I need another paragraph or another line there explaining what that means, because we can't presume that's accurate.
I would have at least wanted a link to where Hamas has said this, but they're not the only ones that have reported this. So I'm probably okay with that graph, at least on a web story. But I would want a link to either some primary reporting or
well, they got that from somewhere. You should cite the source, right?
Yeah, I want to see the source. But other than that, I mean, we know that this is accurate because the Telegraph is not the only one reporting it. And we have governmental organizations that have reported it as well. I mean, we've heard, the U.S. saying that Hamas has told them to do this. We've got the Israelis saying Hamas has told them to do this. Are the Israelis 100% trustworthy? Well, no, but neither is the U.S. government. But where things can be, the thing about and this is where you get to, where they're taking Hamas's word for casualties or whatever's going on, right? The Israelis know. Well, first off, Hamas knows nobody's going to double check them, right? They know that the media is going to salivate over every single casualty report, every photo of somebody who died, even though that same guy has been in 12 photos in 3 different locations.
Yes.
And you start doing a Google image search and you go, wait a minute, this son of a bitch is alive. And so's the 3 kids that they claim died.
Yeah.
But Israel knows that they are going to be poured over. I mean, they're going to get the full proctological, right? I mean, they're going to have every media organization shoving a camera up their ass, trying to find them in a line. So they just don't do it.
Yeah, they don't do it. Right.
You know,
and when their troops do kill somebody out of turn, it's not something they wave away. They have a military adjudication process, and they deal with it. And so, look, are they innocent of killing people? No, of course not. Of course, they've killed some innocent people, but there's a war going on, and so it's up to the commander to decide, is that a legitimate, kill? And you might kill an innocent person, and the commander's like, well, they were in an area, you followed the rules of engagement, and you killed that person. We're going to sign off on it. That's an actual outcome that can happen from a conflict zone. It also is important to understand this too. Sure, maybe that operation is tied to Israeli intel collections. Maybe it is. But part of it is they have a license to go out and operate in that area, in part because they know how the IDF works, and they're also not trying to be part of the problem. And so that's why you get that license to operate in an area, because they're just as worried about an operation being pulled on them. Right. So it's all part of the conflict. And people have to understand conflict doesn't allow for the normal business procedures that you might see. But the IDF is much more internally responsible than the press is allowing them to be.
Well, and I know that I read a little bit on the rules of engagement they're using, and they're looser than what the U.S. would probably have. They amount to almost free fire zones, and we haven't done that in a long time. But the rules of engagement are basically, look, if you think you're in danger, you have the right to use any force up to and including lethal to defend yourself. Well, those are very loose rules of engagement. They are, right. And I get that, and that is going to lead to more so-called collateral damage than the tighter rules of engagement the U.S. would probably put in place. That said, given the situation in which they find themselves and how bad this conflict has been and how long it's gone on, those rules are not, and it, in America, we just, I find it hilarious. Big people from Europe come over here. My son-in-law came over here from Europe, right? From England. And they're just stunned at how big the country is.
Yeah.
What we never realize is that it goes the other way for Americans. We cannot really comprehend just how tiny and crowded Israel is.
Yeah,
and how tiny the Gaza Strip is. So in the close, the whole, pretty much that whole area is one great big city. This is all house to house fighting. That's the most horrible kind of combat you can imagine. Yeah, they've got to have fairly loose rules of engagement, because otherwise they're going to lose people, and commanders are not going. It's not their job to let their soldiers die. It's their job to kill the enemy. It's right. Just all there is to it. So it's there's just this constant blaming, and the media is very guilty of not adding context.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. And we have to understand too, this is an important thing. Part of Hamas's goal is to run an information operation on everybody, so that they do think that Israel is full of a bunch of murderous, genocidal maniacs. And they have put their own citizens into the meat grinder to prove that point. Whether they kill them, or happenstance kills them, or the Israelis kill them, that is 100% what they're doing. So rather than take all the money that they were given over the last decades and improve the condition of Gazans, they built a war machine with them. And they're in the war machine. And this is not like just hiding behind women and children. They interweave it. And so they're trying to accomplish these, I'll say the word affect, because they want you to hate the Israelis, like part of their design. So we have to watch this through those lenses. Let's look at this next article you gave me here from the American Jewish Committee. Humanitarian aid in Gaza. What's really happening? And this is a fresh piece from just this week. So the latest, actually today, or yesterday, the latest on humanitarian aid situation. The current war in Gaza has been exceedingly painful for Israelis. The 50 hostages being held by Hamas for over 22 months remains central. as does the near daily loss of life for Israeli soldiers. For Palestinians, the loss of civilian lives and food security is a heartbreaking reminder of the horrors of war. Pretty good premise, pretty good setup. Got both sides in there. What do you think about that?
Well, and you know, I chose this because it's going to refute, and again, as we've discussed, the Israelis, they're not going to lie because they know they'll get caught.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. So is this unbiased? No, it's not. Obviously not. It's part of the American Jewish Committee. You got to take it for what it's worth. But this is one of the primary sources that the WAPO should have been using.
Right.
Right. They should have been looking at stuff from the AJC. You know, they're reporting on stuff that I've got a couple of Israeli friends, and when you say the word Haaretz, that news the newspaper Haaretz, they spit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a very unpopular among anything but very, very left leaning secular Jews. Haaretz is not a popular newspaper, and it's known for being as bad as the Guardian. So you know, when you're using another,
come on now, call the Guardian what you call it. I like it when you call it the Guardian, because they spelled their own fucking name wrong.
Right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's first off, reporting on what another newspaper has reported on just shouldn't be happening.
Right.
Right. Now, the place I work for now, we do that some, but I'm working for the media arm of a libertarian-leaning think tank. So we got a point of view, we've got a position, and that's fine. Sure. Everybody knows that when they come to our site. And so, we do some stuff where we'll grab a story and say, here's what they got wrong. And that's okay. But to use another news report in this masturbatory, incestuous fashion that the mainstream media does, where the New York Times reports, that the Washington Post reports, that Haaretz reported, that, and it's just, you'll find out, you go through it, and there's like 5-6 different layers of so-and-so reported, and not one reporter went out and did their damn job.
Yeah. You see this all the time. Let me read some more of this news for you. Like many things in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the truth regarding the reality of humanitarian aid situation has been undermined by those pushing a political agenda. This includes inflammatory statements and biased and false reporting. That's a fair thing to say. We haven't even said who's doing it. The explainer aims to provide an update on the latest developments and highlight the complexities that arise in the face of false narratives and misinformation. So what's really happening near Gaza aid sites? Then it goes on to talk more about this. Since Gaza's Humanitarian Aid, GHF, Fund began operations in May, international media, often citing figures from Hamas-run ministries in Gaza, which is a problem, have repeatedly reported large casualty numbers near its aid distribution sites. Remember, we just saw a story about like hundreds of people being killed, and now like we're seeing confirmation that this has been reported, and they're using Hamas's numbers. Okay, big problem. Recently, media outlets, the UN and the Hamas-controlled Gaza Ministry of Health, big red flag, claim that hundreds of Palestinians have been killed. However, many of these reports rely on unverified sources directly tied to Hamas. GHF Executive Director Johnny Moore dismisses the casualty claims as part of the disinformation campaign meant to shut down our efforts, accusing Hamas of intentionally harming people for the purpose of defaming what we're doing. Okay, so do you want to go? I'm going to read more, or is that enough?
No, I think that I think that tells you everything that's going right there. I mean, and then you go down a couple paragraphs, and Haaretz is, there's Haaretz reporting. The Israeli forces fired on unarmed Palestinians near aid sites. Yeah. Well, first off, have we got that confirmed? We got Netanyahu. Okay, I'm not a huge fan of Netanyahu, but But you've also got their defense minister saying that's a blood libel. Didn't happen.
Yeah. Bibi and defense minister for Israel, Katz, condemned the article as contemptible blood libels and malicious falsehoods designed to defame the IDF, the most moral military in the world. By the way, that is confirmed by external sources to include John Spencer, who studies modern warfare, and he has said on numerous occasions there is no genocide, and Israel has performed at the highest level ever recorded for being responsible in the prevention of civilian deaths. And so that gives us a problem where both of these things can't be true.
Right. Right. And I hadn't even heard that. I would have said, well, I don't know about most moral, but maybe so. Hey, we got a guy here saying they're going absolutely above and beyond. And I've read about their door knocker bombs, right? Where when they're getting ready to blow up a building that's got terrorists sheltering in it, they send an inert bomb to hit the roof and go, knock, knock, guys, get out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's something that they've been doing for decades, right? Is not just that, but saying, we will be here at such and such date, at such and such time. We are going to demolish this building. You've got X many hours to get out. That's going above and beyond. That is putting your own troops at significant and by the laws of land warfare, absolutely unnecessary risk. You don't have to do that.
The IDF denied the allegations and reaffirmed its commitment to protecting civilians while launching an internal investigation. Officials stressed Hamas's strategy of embedding fighters among the civilians complicates any military operation and places humanitarian efforts at risk. By the way, that's confirmed over and over again with a variety of internal sources. None of them have an ABC hat on. Okay, it's also clear that the distribution of aid at GHF sites has seen extraordinary complications as large crowds continuously return to seek food because they're starving to death. Despite criticism from some NGOs, the U.S. has committed $30 million to support GHF as a secure alternative to aid channels run by the UN and others that are regularly hijacked by Hamas. By the way, put a pin in that and talk about that in a second, Patrick. In a separate warning, GHF revealed it has received credible intelligence that Hamas has placed cash bounties on its staff. Very common to have that happen. As a matter of fact, I like it when they put a bounty on my head. It means that I matter in the battlefield, including American security personnel and Palestinian aid workers. 12 members of our local team have already been killed and others tortured. The aid organization said, calling it a broader Hamas effect to disrupt the only functioning aid system in Gaza. So Hamas is doing the very thing that undermines the ability of Gazans to eat. And we go from there.
Yeah, and not only that, but it belies what they're saying right here. Belies the thing about I can't remember if it was the WAPO story or the one from the Telegraph saying it's been sparse.
Yeah.
Well, bullshit. Bullshit.
Yeah.
It has not been sparse. I'm sorry, it hasn't. And with the photos. Even the photos that the WAPO put up show that ain't sparse, guys. Mm-hmm. And the real big issue here is, aid organizations have criticized the $30 million. Yeah, because they ain't getting it. Yeah. I mean that's the reality here. The real reason that the other aid agencies are pissed off is because they can't skim.
There's a lot to be said for that, and I'll get a fantastic source on a guy named Scott Richards, everybody who works in that world and can talk directly about the challenges of getting aid in. And look, we often hear there are no reporters. Israel won't allow reporters in. Well, first off, they allow John Spencer in, and he's not technically a reporter, but he's an academician. So if you're telling me they're not going to allow reporters in, I just don't buy that. And I know that they have people interviewing the IDF all the time. So there are personal reportings going on that aren't just Gazans and aren't just Hamas. We can find other sources. Those sources may disagree, Patrick, and I don't know what we do about that, but there are sources reporting things. I don't know that it's true that reporters are banned from the battlefield.
And I don't know about that either. To be fair, if Israel is refusing to allow reporters in, I don't entirely blame them. Most of the mainstream media has proven themselves to be the enemy of Israel. Why would you allow them in? When my so-called colleagues are not doing their job, and they are deliberately distorting what's going on, they're the enemy. You don't let them in. I mean, I hate to say that about my profession, but that's the truth.
Yeah. And I have heard that there's limited access to reporting, in a traditional sense. But I also know that there are people on the ground talking about what's happening. And so, if we want to call them reporters, which I think we can in the modern time, we can get these things, and we can find out about how Hamas is behaving. And by the way, it is not a surprise they're running a giant information operation with this war. I have to always remind us of this too. Hamas created an attack in October of 2023, and then they started to lose people like crazy. So did Hezbollah. So did the Houthis. They started losing. All Hamas had to do was surrender the hostages and surrender unconditionally the military assets, and the fighting would be over. They started and chose to continue this fight and choose to continue this fight. And so we're talking about a thing where if Hamas had acted differently, there wouldn't be all this death and destruction.
Right. Bottom line, they started this. Don't FA if you don't want to find out.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing now just, for all the complaints about the brutality of Israel and on and on and on, we're seeing now just how restrained they have been for the last 30 or 40 years. They could have wiped, and still could, and they still are being restrained. They could wipe Hamas and the entire Palestinian population of Gaza out in a matter of days if they really wanted to do it, if they were really pissed off enough to do it.
Yeah. I'm going to have you put your editor and your publisher hat on, and your reporter comes to you with Hamas sources, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you write a report, or your reporter writes a report, and you get burned one time on it because, that's fine once. But now we know that these guys do this. Here's several stories. ABC retracts claim that Israel occupation forces dropped harrowing leaflet in Gaza. Oopsie daisy. They still go back, even to this day. This is from, I don't know. This is from a while back. March 20th, 2025, right? They still go back and report. The Washington Post, just the other day, retracts Gaza aid report saying it failed to meet fairness standards because they lied and used Hamas's numbers.
The very one that we're talking about right now, they had to retract. Yes. Uh-huh. And not just, this is the part that's great. They didn't just say, well, here's a couple of corrections or a clarification.
Yeah.
They retracted the entire story.
That was their tweet. We took this thing down. Here's why.
Yeah. I look, corrections happen. Okay.
Yep.
Clarifications happen.
Right.
I always tell my reporter to come to me and he, boss, I screwed up. Okay.
Yeah.
What was your mistake? How do we fix it? What did you learn from it? Right. Answer me those three questions. If you can answer me those three questions, all good. Blow it off. We'll run a correction. Got another newspaper tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you can't answer those three questions, we got a problem.
Right? Yeah. And just going all the way back to the beginning, here is that story from the hospital explosion written by Yasha Monk, who look, this is not a piece of hard news, this is an opinion, but it is in the Atlantic.
Right.
And so when they're publishing this stuff, it's the media trying to get this stuff right. But we know that the hospital explosion reporting was wrong. And then here's the Washington Post talking about the faulty reporting on the Gazan aid situation. So that kind of covers our bases with what happened, what was reported, what was retracted back, because it's easy to track. Oh my God, the Israelis are killing hundreds of people at an aid site, and then 2 weeks later you got to go back and be like, oh, sorry, no, they weren't. Let me eat back my, all of my words and all of my offense that I gave out because I was wrong. And what does that say about UNRWA? And what does that say about Hamas? And so when I ask you to put your editor and publisher hat on, how many of those hits can you take and sell papers?
Well, first off, one is all I'm doing. Let me tell you a story, true story as it happens. Yeah. I was the editor of the Pittsburgh Morning Sun, and they were searching for a new principal for the Pittsburgh, Kansas high school.
Okay.
And they got this gal who was working over in the Middle East. I forget where exactly, but she appeared to be highly credentialed, really, really good. And there started to be some reporting, some rumors that she didn't really have the degree that she said she had, that she really wasn't this highly qualified educator that she claims that she was. And you will remember this story because a bunch of high school kids at the local high school did a little bit more digging and came out and wrote a story and got her fired before she ever got the job, because it turned out she'd bought her diploma from a degree mill, and she was a con artist and a scam artist and all of that. My paper got burned real bad on that because I trusted the principal of the high school, or not the principal, but the superintendent of schools. I trusted the superintendent of schools. He had never burned me before.
Right.
And right before their story came out, and to be honest, I wouldn't have run the story that they ran because they had a bunch of holes in it and some things that were wrong that we were able to find and correct later. But, and it was a big, you probably remember this. This was a big national story, right? These high school kids claimed this scout, and they claimed our scout. I had run just before their story came out a story saying, no, this gal is fine. She's got all the things that she's supposed to have. I talked to her on the phone. She was very good. We screwed up. We got, and I had somebody got over me about it. And I said, have you never trusted a source you shouldn't have trusted? Well, yeah, it happens once.
It does happen. Yeah.
It happens once.
For that source. Right.
Right.
You may get burned again by somebody completely different, but yeah, don't get burned by Hamas Ministry of Health ever
right.
again.
And I went to that superintendent the following day and I said, this was you want. Don't ever fucking lie to me again.
And I just want to be crystal clear. I want to say something. I want to be crystal clear in this. We know that Hamas Ministry of Health has done this throughout this conflict.
Yes. And before.
Every time, for sure. Every time you see the reporting, if you see them as a source, that should let all of you now know, oh, this is probably bullshit.
Right.
And watch for the retraction like we did, because I didn't know that Patrick was going to put this forward. I looked for it while we were looking, but boom, there's the retraction, right? You have to look for these retractions to understand that until they start telling the truth, Hamas Ministry of Health is a bad source. It will trick you. And there's nobody that's fixing that. And so when you see these major outlets putting full retractions, pulling the story down, we never said that, sorry. That is what you need to see. And so that teaches us all to look at sourcing. Look at the quotes. Did the person actually say this? What story did this come from? There's a thing, I want to do one with Susan Slusser. I want to get after her ass, because she does a thing that you see often in media where she's like, what? Me? No, I'm innocent. And I'm doing a bad Susan Slusser imitation. But she will seed her articles with these little hits. And if you read the news, pretty straight news, right? And then you see it pulled out and put on X by other accounts and by her. When she pulls her own quote out from her own article and it's not true to what she wrote in the article, we've got a problem. So you see this kind of thing all the time where you put your faith into what the person is saying, that this other person said this thing. You've got to go to the source and read it for yourself, because they may take an inference out of there that isn't what the person was actually saying as they talk about a larger point. Well, you can do it to Patrick and I with the things that we've said. You can make us say something else if you just take out two sentences. Please, Patrick, continue.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's part of the problem is that you take, it's okay sometimes to take the beginning of a quote and the second half of a quote when there's a bunch of superfluous crap in the middle, or somebody's people do that. And there's two schools of thoughts on that. One is that you never ever clean up a quote, and the other is that if you're going to do it, you do it, but you always do it. I'm of the clean the quote up, get the ums and ahs and gunnas and all that nonsense out of it. If the grammar's a little bad, you can clean that up a little bit, because as long as you don't change the quote fundamentally.
You're trying to clearly communicate, right?
Well,
but you don't want to speak for the person. Oh, right. What they meant to say was this. You don't want to do that.
No,
that's too far.
And you got the high school football coach that you're you're working with this guy every week. He may not be the most articulate individual in the world, but you don't want to make him look like a moron in print.
Yeah.
So it's okay to do that. But the thing with Hamas, look, but pulling it out of context or moving things around so that it sounds like they said something they didn't, and it's very easy to do. That's the thing. Is that kind of stuff every journalist knows how to do it. We all know how to do it. It's not hard. It's very easy.
Let's wrap this thing up because I think we covered what we wanted to cover here. So I guess I'll say what I think we've talked about today, and then you can say what we talked about. Sourcing matters. And when you see a source go bad for people, don't get burned. Like Patrick said, don't get burned again and again. So Ministry of Health from Hamas, UNRWA, the UN is having a lot of problems where they are having trouble telling the truth. So even if they get something right, they have cried wolf so many times that it is tough to believe them as a body. Maybe there's some good segments, maybe there's some good people, but we have to be careful of this. And also look for the adjectives, you're going to hear me say this over again, and the adverbs, because they are a tell that something is being sold to you rather than told to you.
Yeah, I agree entirely. And it just boggles my mind that these major outlets continue to report what the Hamas Ministry of Health tells them.
Yeah.
How many times do you have to correct a story? How many times do you have to retract one before you realize that these guys are running a game on you? Right. And their argument is, well, we're not getting anything out of the IDF. We're not getting anything out of Israel. Well, they can't trust you, so no, they're not giving you anything.
Right.
And maybe you need to work on that relationship, and like a good reporter does, and try and fix your relationship with the IDF. And the way that you do that is by reporting truthfully what they tell you. Sure. Right. And yes, absolutely. Verify what they're telling you to. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You got to do it.
Verify what, and look, a lot of this takes a lot of work and doesn't pay well. You've heard Patrick say that. But if Patrick says 100% for sure Israel is killing people as they go to get aid, I can call Patrick and say, hey, you're quoted as saying Israel is killing people when they go to get aid. Is that true?
Yeah.
And then Patrick would be like, why the fuck would I say that?
Yeah.
And then I would write, why the fuck did I say that? And I would write that in the quote because,
you got my phone number. You know how to get a hold of me. And I would be, I would either say, why would I say that? Or yes, I said that. And here is where I got it.
Right. The Very Fine People hoax, that is creative editing. And people to this day, even though it's been debunked over and over again, not a Trump endorsement, by the way. This is just me using a great example of this. Continued, people say that. He said this thing. Watch the whole speech. Don't take it pre-constituted because someone has a chance to trick you with what's going on. Watch the entire press conference. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to like it. You don't want to stomach it, but you at least could hear what the person said. And when Katie McEnemy, when she misquoted the Rhodes thing, and got that wrong. Look, out of the millions of words that someone says live, I made mistakes today, right? These things happen. Yeah. And so it doesn't make Katie McEnemy my favorite person. She's not, I don't care about her. But when they do that, they take you away from the actual news and talk about a mistake of speech that someone made, or you don't know, not everybody knows everything about everything either. So don't be caught up in those things that are delicious and designed to make you run in a certain direction.
Right.
Don't give a pass to Donald Trump. Be a motherfucker to him all you want. Be a critic. All those things. Be a cynic. Be all of those things, but don't get played by somebody who wants you to go in a direction that they're giving you when they're not being truthful. Pete's going to shut up now. Let Patrick talk.
Well, no, I agree with you entirely. I mean, look, I speaking of him, I said all through his first term, there's plenty to dislike about the man. Please quit making me have to defend him because you are taking crap out of context.
They spied on my campaign. He said this 8 years ago. They spied on my campaign. And then we all laughed at him. And it turned out not only true, but probably felonies happened. Who knows what's going to happen with that? It's crazy.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, or the Very Fine People comment. And what he said was the white supremacists, not great people, but they had a permit. Why did they have a permit? Because those groups follow the law scrupulously. Same reason as the IDF tells the truth scrupulously. Because the cops are gunning for them. They're looking for an excuse. The counter protesters, no permit. What they were doing was technically illegal.
Right.
Not justifying the white supremacist nut jobs because they were nut jobs.
Yeah.
They were the ones that were actually following the law.
The No Kings protest, same thing. Months of planning, lots of care. Don't overheat yourself. Make sure you've got water. Don't step in the street. Here's our permit. Everything was legit. Those guys weren't the problem. It was the other people that protested in and around, or because there was a lot of people on the street. So yeah, there's a difference between a protest and a riot. And it starts as soon as someone takes a rock and goes like that. That's a riot about to happen.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And people at the No Kings, I'll say, by and large, none of them got arrested for any kind of violence or any kind of vandalism. Could there be a couple of those things in there? Sure. We're talking out of a lot of people around the nation. Those protests are protests, and it's good. People should exercise their right to speak. I don't care if I agree with anyone's message or not. Go out and get on ballots, get people to sign, petitions, do all that stuff. I'm always for that. Matter of fact, if you come up to me and you're in my district and they say, "Hey, will you sign the petition?" I don't care what it's about. I'm going to sign it because I want you to get on the ballot and let the ballot sort it out. People hate that. That's what I do. I want to see people have their civic voice presented on the ballot. I 100% support that. Yeah. So there you go. There's going to be Pete. I really am going to try to shut up now, Patrick.
No, you're good. You're good. I agree with you entirely. I mean, I'm not a just sign the petition if I don't agree with it, but I respect that. I respect that attitude. Like, let's get up on your hind legs. Let's let people vote for it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Far be it from me to deny someone the chance to get on the ballot. Yeah, let's go. Let's get you there. 200,000. Yeah, I'll sign one time.
But yeah, I mean, we've just got to get. I think the upshot of what you and I have talked about a couple of times now, and I don't want to take too much of your time, but the media has got to recognize that it has a problem.
Yeah.
Hello, Kitty. And
I have a kitty too.
Yeah, well, I just heard him. I have dogs. But the media has got to realize that it has a problem. It has a credibility problem. You can see the New York Times trying to get back there. They're not succeeding, but they're trying. Good. I hadn't seen the retraction. Good on the WAPO. Let me say that. Let me say, for all I was critical of the WAPO's reporting. Good for you, Washington Post. You did the right thing. You got burned. You said we fucked up, and you pulled the Post and owned it. That is literally all anybody really wants from the media, right?
No, I want a little more. A little more because they walked into that trap on purpose.
Well, and I understand that, but what I'm saying is that if you want to keep your credibility, when you make a mistake, it's my 3 questions. What did you do wrong? How are we going to fix it? What did you learn from it? Answer the 3 questions. If you do that and, make a good faith effort to say, we screwed up. We own it. This is where we screwed up. These are the mistakes that were made. When I ran a correction, it was always due to an editor's error, due to a reporter's error. Didn't name names, but I made the reporter
accountability.
Take responsibility for it by saying due to a reporter's error. If it was incorrect information given to us, due to incorrect information given to us by a source. I mean, those are the things. If you do that, that is what people you can get your credibility back. You really can. You just have to be accountable, and you have to be transparent.
Because I'm desperate to not shut up. One more thing. Sorry, everybody. If you want to hold the IDF accountable, you must first hold yourself accountable. You cannot surrender your integrity and then go and scream at people who, whether they deserve it or not, you've lost the professional license. I get that there are pundits, they don't have that kind of license. I get that there are people that write soft news, they don't have that kind of license. But if you're going to do hard news and you're going to check up any kind of big machine, IDF, the Republicans, the Democrats, whatever it is, you must maintain, and matter of fact, higher than maintaining your integrity, you must be above reproach. Or if anybody knows your work, they're like, he made a mistake. Then there's no way. And then say, did I make a mistake? Maybe I did. Let's look into it. And then you go and you verify the quote, you verify the source. And if you do, then you do what Patrick said. You're like, you know what? I fucked up, or reporter fucked up, whatever it is. And you say it, and that's what you have to do to maintain your credibility.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And it really isn't that hard. I guess the thing is it's really super easy to lose your credibility and your integrity, but it's not hard to keep it.
Yeah. And it's possible to improve your integrity as you make mistakes and admit to them. As long as you follow Patrick's big three. And this is where I'm critical of WAPO. They're not learning from their mistake. And if you are going to report Ministry of Health's numbers, you've got to tell the other side of that story. Their numbers are this. We've been burned on this by these guys before. So we talked to the IDF and they said this. Now let the IDF burn you. Can be like, both of these motherfuckers have burned us in the past. You know, and then that tells a bigger story. That tells a bigger story. People will not shut up. I will not shut up today.
No, you're good. You're good because you're right. I mean, that's just it. You're right. I don't necessarily have a problem with reporting Hamas's numbers, right? Because if nothing else, you can show that those numbers are. You can tell the story of how absolutely less than credible Hamas is, right? You can say, look, this is the Hamas numbers. These are the Hamas said 2,500 people died. IDF says we got stepped on bodies 15.
Yeah.
Hamas's numbers have never, and you got to have, it takes one paragraph, right?
Right.
The Ministry of Health's numbers have repeatedly been proven to be wildly exaggerated or just exaggerated.
Yeah. I'm going to have you take your adverbs out.
Take my adverb, but the Hamas numbers have repeatedly proven to be somewhat exaggerated. They must be taken with a grain of salt. Here's what the IDF says. I mean, you can, we cannot verify what Hamas is saying. This is what they say.
I'd put that in every article where I cite Hamas. Hamas has proven to be an unreliable source. However, they are an available source, and it's tough to find them here. Here you go. Here's what they say. By the way, so-and-so from the IDF has said this. And so now we're left in the middle, which is where the real reporting begins. All right, man, let's wrap this up. Anything in closing besides everybody go check out Patrick's Substack. He does good things on there. Check it out. Look, it's easy. You just go, you have nothing to do. Patrick Richardson Substack, and then fly over. You're going to find it for sure. Anything in closing, Patrick?
No, I think just, we need more reporters. We need more media. And send me a DM on Substack if you're wanting to be a citizen journalist. Send me a message. I'll teach you. I'll be happy to do it. Because we need more reporters. There's too many small towns. There's too many. Everybody thinks about the big stories, but you know what? Where the rubber meets the road, where the real difference in people's lives can be made by a journalist is in your hometown. And if you